Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexis Alvarez, and I'm the Director of Statewide Training at Florida Legal Services. I'm very excited to welcome you here today to discuss how to use the law to support sibling relationships, help reduce institutional trauma. Today, we have a really great group of speakers, experts in this field, to talk to you about this important topic. Before we get into introductions and then move into the substance, I'm going to go over some housekeeping announcements. First and foremost, this is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be sent to all of you who are registered and all of you here today. That recording will come to you from Zoom within 24 hours, but if you don't receive it, I'm going to drop my email into the chat, and you can feel free to reach out to me for that or anything else you need if you don't see it in your inbox. Second piece of housekeeping announcements, the closed captions are enabled for anyone who needs that extra accessibility. Third piece of housekeeping announcements, questions and answers. I know this is a little tough. Sometimes we're in a virtual vortex. It doesn't feel very community-based, that we're not able to be with each other. Please don't be shy. Drop your questions into the Q&A preferably. That'll be easier for us to filter. That way we can address them as we go through the substance. Please don't be shy. I know it's tough, but we really want to hear from you. Third piece of housekeeping announcements, CLE credit. This was approved by the Florida Bar for CLE credit and certification credits. I will be dropping that information into the chat at the end of today's discussion. Additionally, that credit information will be provided along with the recording in that email that will come to you from Zoom within 24 hours. Again, as I said earlier, if you need anything, I'm going to drop my email into the chat. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am here to help. And so with that being said, I'm going to move into the introductions of who we have here today, and more introductions will be provided as we go through the presentation. But first and foremost, today with us, we have Robin L. Rosenberg, who is an AV-rated board-certified specialist in juvenile law. She is the Deputy Director of Florida Children's First, the statewide legal advocacy organization that fights for the rights of children in state care. She trains and supports attorneys and facilitates the Florida Dependency Law Center resource for lawyers and judges. We also have Christine Smith, who is the newest addition to Florida's Children First, serving as its first staff attorney to represent children and young adults. Christine graduated with honors from Stetson University College of Law in 2006. After law school, Christine began her career in child advocacy at the L. David Shear Children's Law Center at Bay Area Legal Services, a nonprofit children's law center. In 2011, Christine joined the firm of Hernandez and Smith, PA, as partner, focusing on juvenile and family law. And I will turn this over to the people you want to hear from today. Robin, Christine, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for talking to us about this important subject. The floor is yours, and I'm here for anything that you need along the way.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexis. Welcome, everybody. Sorry I can't see your faces, but I can see your names. Glad to see a lot of folks that I know. So first, let me say happy Siblings Day. Sibling Day. Today, April 10th, is National Sibling Day. And if you are not a public radio geek like me, I want to point out to you that National Public Radio has been doing a series on sibling relationships. They started about a week ago. There are several items, and you can get them on the websites of your local public radio or National Public Radio that talk about sibling relationships from a variety of aspects. And I highly recommend, if you're interested in more of the sociological issues and psychological issues around siblings, that would be a good starting point for some further investigation. What we're going to talk about today is Florida law, policy, and practice relating to sibling relationships for kids that are in state care and their siblings who may have left state care. So I am very excited to be joined in the presentation today by our colleagues at Florida Youth Shine. And we have two Youth Shine members who are participating in the webinar today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Alexia, would you like to go first?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me, everyone?
We can hear you just fine.
Yep. Okay, perfect. I'm Alexia. I'm 25 years old. I'm the events and meetings chair for Florida Youth Shine, and I came into care when I was 15, and I aged out at 18.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Ahim.
My name is Ahim King. I'm a Florida Youth Shine member. I came into care at the age of 15 until I aged out at 18. I'm from Tampa, by the way.
Thank you, guys. I saw somebody raise their hand already. I don't think we're going to be able to take questions live on air, but if you can drop your question into the chat, that would be really helpful. Thanks. And hi, Chris. Okay, so let's get started on why we're all here. All of child welfare law relating to children's relationship within the court system is in Chapter 39 of Florida statutes. There are 3 overarching goals in Chapter 39 that relate to siblings. Number 1, keep siblings together whenever possible. Number 2, when siblings are not together, promote frequent visitation and communication if they have to be apart. And 3, keep siblings connected. Now, that may sound like 1 and 2, but it's really geared toward when some of the siblings leave state care. So we're going to look at these overarching goals, the law that support them, and hear from Ahim and Alexia about how these issues impact their life when they were in care and presently. So let's start with Chapter 39, the introduction, number 1. So I've put with all of the statutes the year that they were enacted. So I want to emphasize that this promotion of sibling rights and relationships is not a new thing in Florida law. 26 years ago, the purpose of this section of Florida law, Chapter 39, was amended to make it really clear that the purpose of this law includes to make every possible effort to keep siblings together and to keep them in communication when they can't be living together. And I always go back to the whole point of child welfare is the state has come in to interfere in a family's life to say, we do not think it is safe for this child to remain with their parents or their legal caregivers. And we're going to use the law of the state to remove that child from their home. Surely there is an implied promise in that we will take them from something that we don't think is safe for them and put them somewhere better. And when we're taking children away from everything they know and love and all of their possessions, somewhere better does not include taking them away from the siblings that they were growing up with. So from the get-go, the purpose of this statute is to say the state has this obligation to give children something better, and that includes keeping them together with their siblings. So a year after the goals of the overall statute were changed, the precursor to Florida Youth Shine, young people who were advocating for the rights of themselves and their brothers and sisters in care, sought a foster youth bill of rights. It didn't get passed as a bill of rights. It got passed as a bill of goals for dependent children, but it also specifies that children are supposed to be put in a home only with their sibling or with no more than one other sibling, and to have visitation at least once a week unless the court orders otherwise. So again, 1999, we're pushing this idea that kids want to and should be stayed connected with their siblings. So then that kind of begs the question of who is a sibling? So let's go through some scenarios and think about, are these people siblings or not? So first, we have 2 young people who have the same birth mom and birth father. They're full siblings, they're siblings. Next, when we have children who share one parent and not the other parent, legally we call them half siblings, but under the law, they're siblings. When you have children who have different birth parents, but were adopted into the same family, they share legal parents, they're siblings. If a child's birth parents, so this child, Carl, was adopted by a family, His birth parent has another child, Kathy. Kathy lives with her birth parents. Carl lives with his adoptive parents. They are siblings. Carl's adoptive sister, Candy, has her parents had a child who was adopted by a completely different person. Candy and Chris are also full siblings, even though they reside in different homes and have different legal parents. They're also siblings. In this situation, Denise's mom and Doug's dad married when their children were young. The children all live together. We call those step siblings. They are also siblings. And finally, you have Ethan, who lives in a foster home with foster parents and their daughter, Ellen. He lives in that home. He treats and views Ellen as his sister. She views him as her brother. Under the law, they are also siblings, even though they have no legal relationship. And that's because Florida law was amended in 2014 to define siblings as those that share a birth or legal parent, but also, for purposes of Chapter 39, it defines siblings as a child who's lived with one or more other children in a home that they identify as siblings. This is really important to young people in care. We put them in a home. They're raised up with other children, and then they create sibling relationships. We've put them in that situation, and yet later we just pick them up and move them and pretend that there wasn't a relationship created. And so in 2014, and this was in large part due to advocacy by Florida You Shine, that definition of sibling was broadened to include children who young people were raised with. So all of this leads to, I want you to keep these concepts in mind when we're talking about siblings. Number one, the number of siblings that a child has can only increase over time, unless unfortunately when a child dies. But as far as in the life of a child who comes into the foster care system, you never lose siblings, you can only add them. The termination of parental rights does not dissolve sibling relationships. This is a really important concept that people, get in their head, that once that TPR takes place, the parent no longer has a legal relationship with the child. That TPR does not terminate sibling relationships. And moving a child away from other children does not dissolve the sibling relationship. The relationship was created when they lived together as siblings. So the fact that one of them is moved out of that location does not eliminate the sibling relationship. So when we talk about the laws that protect sibling relationships, it protects all of those relationships, not just legal, not just adoptive or birth relationships, but the ones that were created by living together. So were there any questions yet? Okay. So we will do some practical things about how to connect. Marie, I'm gonna hang on to your question for later, but we will talk about that. Okay, so number one goal of the law, keep siblings together whenever possible. So before we get into the law, I'm going to start with a pop quiz, and Alexis is going to come back and she's going to generate a quiz on your computers and give you all an opportunity to answer the questions. So 3 questions, just give your quick feedback.
I can read them out loud if you'd like, Robin.
Sure.
Question number 1, DCF's goal is to place what percent of sibling groups together? 45%, 55%, 65%, or 75%? Question 2, is the system meeting its goal? The options are below goal, on target, or exceeding the goal. Question 3, what is the trend for this performance measure? Trending to fewer placements together, holding steady, or trending to more placements together, excuse me. And so I see we have about 37% who have participated so far. Thank you all for your participation. I think we can give it, what, another 30 seconds?
Yeah. Let's, so while you guys are answering that, I want you to think about kind of where we're at as a state right now. And we start with the target, right? The state, as all other major performance measures that DCF has, that the CBCs and all the folks are working toward, we try to meet our goals, right? So the starting point question is, what is the target that we're trying to meet? And we can leave the quiz open, but I'm going to go ahead and start to show the answers. So the target that the state has for keeping siblings together is 65%. So our target is that it's okay for essentially a third of kids in care to not be placed with their siblings. Unfortunately, you can see from this graph, and this graph was downloaded from the DCF dashboard. I downloaded it in February. The material, the data update is January 10th of 2024. Florida had been pretty good holding at the trend of about 65%, but it has dropped starting in the beginning of the 21 fiscal year. So that would be July 2021. And that trend is down. So A, we have a low target. B, we're falling in that target. And the trend is a downward trend. And the interesting thing to lay over on top of that is at the same time, if anyone is paying attention to data with DCF, the number of kids in care has dropped dramatically over time. There are fewer young people in out-of-home care now than there were, I don't know, in the past 10 or almost 20 years, quite a long time. So even though we have fewer kids that are in the system, and then theoretically, we ought to be able to serve them better because we have more resources for the ones who are in. The trend of the number of sibling groups in care is going down. So what does this all mean? We've been working, there's been a goal of sibling relationships for 26 years. We can do better. And it is our hope that with the materials and the discussion that we have today, that you all will help the system do better by advocating for the individual children that you work with. So that is our overarching goal. We have the tools are available to you, and we hope that you will use them. So I'm going to toss it back to Alexis and Ahim to talk to us about your experiences with your siblings during the time that you were in care. And let's see, Ahim, do you want to go first this time?
Oh, sorry, I'm pulling up some notes.
Do you want us to start with Alexia?
Yeah, you can start right.
Okay, Alexia, are you ready to go ahead?
Yeah, so right now we're just introducing like my family dynamic with my siblings, correct? Okay. So yeah, so I am one of 6 siblings. Well, I have 6 siblings on top of me, so 7. And it's a little bit confusing, our dynamic, but I have one full blood sister. I have another sister that's like full blood, but she's my half sister, both from my mom's side, and a little brother also on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, I have a half brother as well, and he's a little bit older than my little brother. I was with both of my sisters for most of my life, with my mother and my maternal grandmother on and off. So I have a very, very close relationship with them. They're like my confidants and my best friends. And then with my little brother on my father's side, I was with him when he was around the time when he was born. I spent a lot of time with him, but also when he was a toddler, I lived with him. So I was able to have like a close relationship with him when he was a lot smaller than that was like 10 years ago. So when he was like a baby, I had a very close relationship with him, but definitely like the distance drifted that. And my little brother on my mom's side was born when I was in care. So I did miss out on a lot of those pivotal moments when he was first born. But I was still able to like rekindle a bond with him because he was still young enough. And making sure I'm saying everything I want to say for the dynamic. So yeah, no, that's basically what we look like. And even though we have been separated, today we are still like siblings, very close.
There was a question in chat. I don't know if you want to address, is there anyone that you lived with when you were in care that you view as a sibling?
Well, when I was first placed in a shelter after I was in a safe house and a group home for a very short period of time. And when I was in that shelter, which was my longest placement, I did have a lot of girls that I felt very close to. One of them felt like more like a child to me than honestly like a sister, but I guess like we were very similar in age. So she was like a sister to me. And I do have some of the other youth that I am still in contact with that I would definitely say come close to my sibling relationships, especially because they're able to understand experiences that I had in care more than my actual siblings could understand.
Great, thank you. Ahim, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So it's
Your
just two of
your
us. It's
camera's
just
off. If you can put it on, it would be nice.
sorry. Can you see me now? Okay. So it's just me and my brother. So I only have one sibling. When we first went into care, we were initially together, but after some complications with my aunt, me and my brother we were split apart for like 6 or 7 months. So to answer the third question, no, we weren't we didn't get to stay together the whole time while we were in care.
And there was a question that came in asking whether you had a relationship with anyone else that you lived with when you were in care.
No, not really. As far as like people my age, I had friends, but they weren't in care. So no.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to pause for a second and try to answer a bunch of questions that have been in the chat. So I want to make it clear that when I'm talking about the sibling relationship existing, we're talking about in the context of Chapter 39 and the laws that apply in Chapter 39. They are not the same as completely private adoption. So those laws, adoption laws in Chapter 63, there is a crossover for adoptions that come from foster care, but what we're talking about here is not applicable in general family law or in the adoption context generally, and it's the relationship between the siblings. It is not the relationship between the parents and the children. So when there was a question about inheritance, that is governed by the parent-child relationship, not the sibling relationship. And I think some of the other things that have been raised, we will try to get to later. So going to keep going on with the statutes that are involved when kids come into the child welfare system. So the first entry, the first connection between the system and children at shelter, DCF's obligation is set out right there in the shelter statute. Again, the requirement to make reasonable efforts to keep siblings together, preferably in a foster home, but it recognizes that a short-term placement in a group home, if that will achieve keeping siblings together, is an option. And at that shelter hearing, there should be a discussion about visitation and other interactions if the placement together was not successful. So we start out right at the beginning at shelter. The family finding obligation also starts to come into play at the outset and at shelter. And the family finding statute details the efforts that the state, DCF, and then its contractor, the community-based care agency, are supposed to take on behalf of children to locate multiple family members and fictive kin, so friends of the family, to and one of the purposes of this ongoing requirement and effort to find these families is to promote the sibling relationship, because of the increased likelihood that a relative or close family friend would be willing to take in the sibling group so that they can stay together. I want to pause for a second and say that when you get the video link tomorrow, which will be check your spam filter because it will be coming from Zoom, you will also get a copy of these slides and then separately a whole compilation of the statutes and other rules, et cetera, that we're going to be referring to. So you don't have to take notes from these. You will have the slides and the actual excerpts of the statute and the materials that you get. Okay, so we're talking about all of these laws that are coming to play at the beginning that are requiring all of the efforts be made to keep the siblings together. So we've talked about at shelter and the shelter hearing, the ongoing family finding requirement. And now let's talk about the law that went into effect in, I'm going to back up a second. The shelter law was 2014. The family finding law was 2018. Placement decisions. There were several laws passed in 2021 that affect the placement of children. And this first section that I'm talking about is the best interest determination. So we have a specific statute that details a variety of factors that the court should consider in determining where a child should be placed. And that DCF and the CBCs need to consider when they're making those recommendations on placement. And so among the many factors of what's in a child's best interest, considering the current and previous relationships of siblings is one of those factors, as is will moving them separate or reunite siblings. Now, the best interest statute has a whole long list of things that need to be considered, but sibling relationships are part of them. And that best interest statute applies in when the child is taken into care by the CPI, which is prior to shelter. It applies for the multidisciplinary teams that are considering changes of placement. It applies in the statute that specifically discusses placement of sibling, and it applies in the post-disposition change of custody. So that this list of best interest is repeated and referenced throughout Florida statutes. Okay, so multidisciplinary teams, that law was also enacted in 2021, and their scope of the work of a multidisciplinary team includes the looking at tough decisions, including the placement of children and sibling groups. The MDT statute itself has specific language about what that team is supposed to consider, especially when they're assessing the placements for young children. And there they talk about children under 3. And one of the key aspects of that is to make sure and to consider whether the caregiver is willing to ensure frequent family and sibling visits. Okay, so the decisions that have to be made when kids are in the child welfare system, it can be complex, and the social workers and the court have to consider a variety of things when making those decisions. But this legislature has specified what they consider to be important considerations when they're trying to decide those tough questions. And then it's specifically in the same year, 2021, the legislature created a priority of placements, and they are intended to be in an order of priority. We have a child who's been removed from their parent, and we have to decide where they're going to live. This is the statutory priority. Number 1 is a non-offending parent. And number 2 is a relative. Number 3 is the adoptive parent of a sibling. So even that person is not technically a relative, the law recognizes that a person who has adopted a sibling is a high priority to take placement of siblings that come into care. And there is a repeat in this statute of the placement priorities to place siblings together whenever possible, if it's in the best interest of each child in the sibling group. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So this placement priority applies at shelter. It applies prior to shelter and after the child has been adjudicated and we're looking at changing custody. So I want to focus on whenever possible and say to you that whenever possible does not mean always. It's nice to have a rule of thumb and not have to make complex decisions, but we're talking about people's lives and the consequences of important decisions can be long lasting. And so this was a big concern to the legislature in 2020, leading up to that set of laws. So some of you may recall there were several cases around the state, but just put in some highlights from a case out of Pasco County where a judge ordered a 3-year-old child who had been living with the same foster parent pretty close to birth to be moved to go live in the foster home with older siblings who the child had not ever lived with before and who had previously not been stable in their placements. So first, the report where the judge ordered that the child be moved to go live with siblings. And then there was an article in the same paper, this is the Tampa Bay Times, saying that's always the rule, except when it's not, because that's not done in every case. And finally, you see in the Times their opinion piece about needing more consistency in the law. This case was very concerning to the legislature. And so that whole slew of laws that we saw in 2021 were in part a reaction to this and other similar cases that were reported in the news. And so what they came up with regard to sibling placements was a really detailed law that repeats what we know, try to keep them together whenever possible. If another sibling comes into care, try to place them with the siblings who are already in care. But there's a caveat, if it won't jeopardize the stability of the placement and the best interest of each child. And this best interest determination is specific to each child. So there can be a sibling group where it's in the best interest of some siblings to be placed with all of their other siblings. And it is not in the best interest of other siblings to be in that group placement. The decision is supposed to be made looking at the perspective of each individual child, not the sibling group as a whole. So we don't have a rule that says siblings must always be placed together because it is not always in the best interest of each child in that sibling group. This is why we have this whole raft of laws that were put into place in 2021. And so before moving a child, like this 3-year-old child that was moved, the MDT has to consider all of the factors for all of the children and making the decisions about whether to move children. And the law specifically states that the state, DCF, and the court do not have to move a child to create a relationship between siblings if one did not exist. So this is a really important step back. It's not an all or nothing. Really important for siblings to be placed together, but not to the exclusion of the individual needs of individual children. Again, we talked about it previously. The point is to look at the relationship from the perspective of each child and to determine the ties and the potential harm to the children. when there has not been an existing relationship, there are specific considerations in the statute about what the MDT should consider before deciding to move the child. And I've listed them here in the role. So the purpose of all of this is to say, we're going to take a look at each individual child and determine the help or harm that will occur if they're apart or if they're moved to be put together. So I'm going to take a quick look at questions to see if I can answer any of these. The word relative is defined in Florida statute, and I didn't put it in the materials, but easy enough to find when the question is, how broadly is relative defined in the placement decision? I'm not sure, Michelle, the question about are people being forced to report matters? And if you could clarify, we could address that. The reduction in the number of youth in care is really interesting, but would take a lot longer than we have time to address in this topic. And I'm not sure that there's one specific clear answer. Okay, so we've talked about goal 1, keep siblings together. There are a ton of statutes that you can use and cite. If you are trying to keep siblings together and you need to make a motion, argue at an MDT, the law is with you and there is the law. Okay. So goal 2, frequent visits and communication when children are apart. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Shine, to give us some of their experience of staying or trying to stay connected when they're with their siblings when they were apart. Alexia, would you go first, please?
Yes. Okay. So when I was placed away from my grandmother and sisters, it was in the middle of the night, and I had no contact with my sisters for 2 weeks because I didn't have phone access. Communication was restricted at the shelter and the group home as well. So I had to earn the privilege to use communication. Um, and I had really horrific life-threatening experiences when I was in care. I almost lost my life and I almost lost every single belonging I had. I actually did have most of them stolen from me, but I had like a little bit of stuff left. And I wasn't able to speak to my sisters or other family. So I was basically left with no support to get through this time in my life, and my caseworker made no effort to help me in any way, especially when it came to visits with my family or my sister. And I didn't have a GAL or a lawyer, so I didn't get any legal help either. And when I finally got to speak to my little sister, who is the older of my 2 sisters, the one that I was the closest to, it was really hard for me to open up because I honestly felt embarrassed and ashamed about the things that were happening to me, and I felt like she couldn't understand, and I also didn't feel as comfortable as I had previously felt, because it was just like obviously that's my sister, she's not a stranger, but it's like she wasn't there for so many things that happened in my life at that point, so it was just really hard for me to feel comfortable talking about a lot of those things. And I also, like, didn't wanna shatter that, like, that image of that strong older sister who can handle everything. But, on top of that, it was also difficult because when I was actually able to speak to her, it was during the times when she's, like, with her friends after school. So it's like she's not gonna tell them, like, "Hey, like, my sister's calling from the group home, like, this is the only time I could talk to her," so sometimes she wouldn't answer just to not have to bring up what was going on at home. Because like I didn't even want to talk about it, so I completely understand. Like we were both very embarrassed by it, even though we weren't the ones facilitating what was going on. And then I didn't see my family for almost all of my time in care. 1 month before I turned 18 for Thanksgiving break, I actually got to see my sisters finally and my brand new little brother and my grandma, but I did not get to see my other brother. And it was really hard for my grandmothers because number one, like it was 5 hours away, so they would have to drive if they took it upon themselves. Number two, only one of them drives. And then number three, like they are not from this country, the both of them. One of them is from Ukraine, the other one is from Haiti. So English is like very difficult for them to navigate. And it definitely hurt me a lot that I missed out on getting to be a mentor to my youngest siblings, and it also hurts that I missed some of the milestones that they reached in their lives. Um, but yeah, like I didn't get to be like that older sister, and being separated from my younger sisters, who I was the closest to, was really hard because like again, they were my best friends. I wasn't there to support them through the worst things they're going through in their life. They weren't there for me for any support. We had a really, really hard time relating to each other when I first got back because we just had such different experiences at that point and such little contact that it was just like definitely a journey to become familiar with each other the way that we were. And we definitely like have had a lot of arguments stemming from that. A lot of things like just festered and grew over time. It took us years, like to this day, still to iron out a lot of the issues that we both like basically like took on to ourselves, like both from like familial things and like the outside world. And like right now we're currently both in therapy, mainly for ourselves, but like how we're going to be treating ourselves is definitely going to affect our relationship with each other. So after we're done getting a lot better of a handle on ourselves, we're definitely going to start doing family therapy. And hopefully like my younger siblings will feel comfortable to join too. But it's everything.
Thank you, Alexia. Ahim?
Yeah, similar to my peer, uh, when me and my brother were split and we were living separately, our communication really wasn't there. Like she said, sometimes you couldn't have no, not sometimes, a lot of times you wouldn't have no phone access, or they use the phone as a reward system, saying if you do this and that and the fourth thing, you get your phone. So me and him didn't really get to talk much. We probably actually seen each other like 7 to 10 times while we were away from each other. And as far as like who facilitated like visits and stuff, I didn't really have that connection with my I guess your case manager, because I guess she was always doing something. So I would have to contact the person over the group home, and sometimes he would answer, sometimes he wouldn't. But when he did, that's when I was like, okay, let me go over and see him. And honestly, some people wouldn't think like the 6 to 7 months was that big of a like gap, but I took it a certain way. So branching off that, it it immensely affect our relationship. That's like it was a very like huge point in time, and we were always used to staying with each other, living together, enjoying times. Like if you eat, I eat, and to have that like taken from us for such a long time, like of course it would impact our relationship. We we still don't click as well as we once did, and I do see that like when I call him, it's like yeah, we talk about school, we talk about like grinding, quote unquote. But yeah, it's not as close knit as we once were. But we working on it.
Thank you. Thank you both. So let's look at what the law says about communication when siblings are separated. The statute is really clear and, talking about the importance of the bond and the responsibility of the adults to facilitate those relationships. And so there's also supposed to be support by DCF and the CBC to the caregivers to help support the relationships. They talk about having being creative with your communication. And I can attest to that. My son has a sibling who lives in another state, and he spends more time with him than the one that lives across the hall from him because they spend every night doing video games together. So they're constantly talking to each other and communicating. So visitation is, just one in a realm of areas and ways that the siblings can be connected to each other. And, and the responsibility is on the adults. And it's unfortunate that really neither Ahim or Alexia had a lot of adult support when they were in care to keep connected to their siblings. But, good for them for pushing as much as they did to have the contact that they could have. So I want to point your attention to the last bullet on the slide. Withholding visitation or communication cannot be used as a punishment. And as Ahim said, a lot of kids that are in group homes have a point system before they can even get to a phone. And that's a whole other separate set of issues. But children have the right to be connected to their siblings. Now, just to be clear, this is not to say that, if you have a fun outing planned, you're going to take the kids to Disney World with their sibling. And there have been behavior issues that make it inappropriate to take that outing. It doesn't mean you can't cancel the trip to Disney World, but it means that you can't keep the siblings from each other. So you can cancel a fun outing, but you have to have a replacement so the kids have an opportunity to connect with each other. Mara, I see you have a hand raised. If you could drop your question into the chat, we would be happy to try to answer it. So there's a really important distinction that they have to have the capacity to connect with each other. It doesn't necessarily mean the specific outing that you have planned. Okay. And in fact, only the court can limit contact and sibling visits. And that can only be done if the court makes a finding that it's contrary to the safety or the well-being of the child. So, you have a bad feeling, or one foster parent complains that a sibling comes home from a visit and they act out. That could be for a whole variety of reasons. You cannot withhold contact or visitation unless you get in front of a judge and can make a case for why it is harmful to the safety or well-being. And if you do make that case, the law now obliges DCF and the CBC to provide the services that can ameliorate that concern. So yes, there are legitimate concerns. You may have a situation where there's been inappropriate sexual activity between siblings before they came into care. There may be, such tension that physical altercations happen frequently with the kids. Those things need to be addressed. Just separating them does not fix the problems. And most of us who have siblings have had issues in sibling relationships, and we have to work it out because we live under the same roof. And by hook or by crook, this is how we learn to deal with other people. This recognizes that there may be times where it's not safe or appropriate, but that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story. It is the obligation of the state to provide the services that will help those children have a healthy relationship going forward. This is a new addition to that statute in, the new statute. And so that was really important. So Michelle put her question in the chat. If a child is sent to a group home and they're not allowed to communicate until after it's earned, can they do that to a new child, or can that be changed with the group home? Do the kids know they have a sibling right to communicate? So all of us need to do better in helping kids understand what their rights are. This past legislative session, not the one that just ended a month ago, but last year, the legislature expanded the law under 39-4085 to expand the requirement for DCF and therefore the CBCs to educate young people about their rights. All 118 of you that are on the call are part of that, because you need to know what kids' rights are to tell them what their rights are. And it is a problem if a group home withholds that communication because it's their plan or their point system, right? The visitation should be part of the child's case plan, should be argued for. People should know what is required. If you work with kids, you should help them assert their rights to get more visitation with the kids. And so I think it is a problem for a group home to prevent a child from having communications because they haven't earned the right to get to the phone. Okay, so that's that question. If you're a foster parent, how do you manage the routine about now you have to, well, so you, as a foster parent, as a group home staff, you have to manage your household or the home that you're, the facility that you're dealing with the children. You have to make a reasonable time and opportunity for the children to connect. That's not to say you have to interrupt, dinner or homework time or whatever is the routine in your family. But you need to find a time and a place that's appropriate where the child in your home has a reasonable opportunity to talk to their sibling that's somewhere else. And so that's, what grownups do. You might have to talk to the other parent, foster parent or group home to find out a mutually convenient time. So I'm not saying that it has to be unlimited access at any time, but you have to make access. That's what the law requires. So, yeah. So the issues about all across the board about kids and asserting their rights and escalating, those are all really important skills. They're not the subject of this particular training, but education is the key to all of it. Understand what your rights are, and then that is something that YouShine works on, helping their peers understand how to advocate for themselves, and that should be part of the education that's required that comes across with the changes to the law. And now Florida has put in the statute the ombudsman office, because that's another place, where young people can seek help effectuating their rights. So, okay, let's keep trucking because we have lots more to cover. Goal 3 that we talked about is keeping siblings connected. And in this circumstance, I'm going to ask Alexia. I know that YouShine has worked on sibling issues for a long time. And I know that you've talked to some of your peers who lost track of siblings. And I wonder if you can tell us about that experience. Not that it's yours, but experience that you can share from a peer.
Of course. So I have a friend in Florida YouShine who is separated from his older siblings because he was the only one in care. And it was hard to be the only sibling who was in care and separated from the whole family because he did not have support from them. When he reconnected with his siblings, he was desensitized because they were apart for so long and didn't have a chance to build the relationship that siblings usually get to build. But being away from them and not having their support affected his other relationships in life for sure. When I first met him, it was hard for him to express a full range of emotions. He felt no one was his friend and that no one cared for him. And now he has been able to form a relationship with one of his brothers, and he goes out of state to visit his brother, and his brother has a nephew. I mean, he has a nephew, so his brother has a son that he gets to visit. And his brother has become a good support system for him after spending some time in prison and turning his life around. He's really supportive to my friend. And I can definitely see how my friend is benefiting from this relationship with his brother because now he's opening up a lot more and acknowledging that he does have friends and people in his life that care about him, along with being a lot more verbal about how he feels. And when he does feel like somebody is that caring, supportive figure, he does show it a lot more now.
Thank you. Okay, so in the statute that was added, there is a specific provision that requires DCF to provide children with the location and the contact information of their siblings. And if DCF does not have that information, they have to make reasonable efforts to get that information. So this is a new thing, a new requirement specified in the statute. Alongside that are rights to communication with siblings who are not in care. And that is, it gets a little tricky because children that are in the care of their parents have the right to control who their own children communicate with. But not all children exit care to go back to their parents. And so they have the children that are in care have the right to have the court consider the appropriateness of contact with children who leave for any reason. And so, and that includes the right to try to have contact with siblings who leave for adoption. And all this advocacy should be done before the permanency plan for the sibling is completed. So these issues need to be addressed. They're part of the multidisciplinary team in consideration of where placements will be. And they're part of the adoption discussion and selecting a prospective adoptive placement for a child. And the folks that are in there should be advocating for children to maintain those communications and relationships and to have that put in those permanency documents. And that includes in the adoption statute. So we said all child welfare is in chapter 39. There are parts of the adoption statute, which is chapter 63, that for adoptions from the child welfare system, the right to have post-adoption communication or contact can be ordered by the court if it's in the best interest of the siblings. And so there's specific provision, again, here on the screen and in the materials that you'll get, to have the court consider that and to have that reflected in the order of adoption. It also can be reflected in an order placing in guardianship, and the legal citation for that is in the materials that you'll get. And I mentioned the adoptive family selection rule, and when the consideration is being made, should the child be adopted, by whom should the child be adopted, the team should be looking at what is the willingness and ability of the prospective adoptive parents to keep siblings in connection and communication with each other. And that can be whether they're willing to adopt all siblings, and even if they aren't, or it's not possible to adopt all siblings, the willingness to continue with the post-adoption communication. That should be thought of upfront and then reflected in the actual documents. A couple of questions. What if they're in foster care? Disclosing the location. I can't think of any reason why children should not know where their siblings are. That's what is intended. They have the right to know where their siblings are. Is there a frequency expectation for sibling visits? So we saw in the goals up front, 394085, in the goal was a sibling communication of at least once a week. There's not a specific statutory or rule requirement, but the more frequent, the better. I mean, there's not any, unless there's a specific reason that it should not be more frequent. You pick up the phone and call your sibling. Why shouldn't your kids in care be able to do that and talk to them whenever they want? So once an adoption takes place, what happens if the adoptive parent doesn't allow contact? If you put an agreement in and a provision in the adoption agreement, then you can proceed legally to try to effectuate that. I'm not going to say that Florida has great law about enforcing post-adoption communication, but if it's in a court order, then, for every right, there's a remedy and it can be pursued. And we're going to get into more of the practicalities, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Christine Smith, to talk about some of the practical applications, which is a lot of the questions that you all are asking. So, Christine.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Florida Children's First, their first staff attorney, and I represent kids around the state as their attorney. And so I am on the nuts and bolts side of the house trying to get all of these things done. I think we had some questions on how do we make sure that this is happening. We do have good laws, so it's just a matter of advocacy and how we can make sure that happens. I've been noticing in the comments that there's a lot of focus on how do we ensure this happens. I think the overall application is to familiarize yourself with Florida's laws, and every opportunity that you can in the life of the case, you try and make sure it's happening, so that you don't get to the end of the case and you're trying to stomp out the fire that could have been prevented. So that's my overarching commentary, is that be familiar. We are going to be sending out the PowerPoint slides and the statutory references. For example, the next slide is check the case record fact sheet, which is statutory 3900146. So a child does have the right to know the sibling's location of their current home, current and out of home placement. So if that's not happening, or if you're getting pushback, my experience is that, I mean, some of these laws are, the law moves rather slow. So if we get a statutory update as of 2021 and we're looking at 2024 right now, that's still relatively new in the scheme of things. Most of us here on the chat and in this training are attorneys, but in practicality, DCF and case managers are in the trenches trying to cover a lot of cases. And so sometimes it's a matter of them not knowing. I think that's one of the reasons why we like to do trainings, is because sometimes case management does not know. Sometimes the children do not know. So if we get the word out, then we can address these things in staffings. We can address them in status conferences. We can address them as the case lives on. And also in the case record fact sheet, there has to be a reason stated as to why there isn't joint placement. I know as practitioners, we probably have all had the heartburn to where kids are not placed in the upfront. Perhaps there's a reason for it. Perhaps it was a matter of there wasn't a placement available. It's really nice to have that in, not just nice to have, but it must have. 2H says it must have, because sometimes you're not the only one on the case in the life cycle of the case. So we have our legislature directive that it must be in there, so that we know if the children are not together, why. And we also must have on the beginning of the case reasonable efforts to being made to provide that frequent visitation and interaction between the siblings when they are not placed together. We also have in our 396012 in case plan to ensure that the case plan includes sibling visitation. So if that's another checkpoint. So as we go through, we want to make sure that it's the case plan development happens relatively early in the case. And so I think having practiced in dependency for a while, we're always making sure parents get visitation, and we know that's in the case plan. And if we could advance the slide, there's the statutory reference to case plan tasks. Again, we're always making sure that the parents have a right to visit their child. And I think there's a big focus on that in court. But it also, in the case plan, it should have a plan for the sibling visitation. I saw some questions in there about distance, and I think even Alexia had mentioned that her siblings were 5 hours away. So we do have to take into consideration the viability and how that's going to occur. I think the earlier we get all the folks that are important into the life of a child on board, the better off we're going to be. Foster parents, I actually have prior experience as a foster parent. foster parents sometimes are willing to do visitation with the parents and sometimes not. But I would encourage practitioners and folks in the child welfare to encourage the foster parents or the caregivers, relative caregivers, to do the visitation with the siblings if possible, because when the lights are off on the case, those people that are important to the children and in the children's lives, those are the adults that are responsible, that are going to kind of passing the torch and going to be the ones that are making sure that that happens. The other thing, in talking with kids, young adults, we have a shared experience a lot of times when we have kids in care, same set of siblings, or same set of parents, same set of circumstances that led the kids into care. And so they have those shared experiences. And then when they get separated, they have all of these separate experiences that are sometimes tough for them to process. So consider in court asking for sibling therapy if you have a child that you represent. If they are separated, consider that that they may need to process some of those emotions on the sibling separation in therapy, either in individual therapy or sibling therapy. Sometimes we overlook that, and we're so focused on the parent, getting their child reunified, and we have family therapy that we're not focusing on that sibling relationship. But there is that availability to children. I also want to mention that I think that it's best practice when we talk about a plan for sibling visitation. We need to think about the schedules of the children, the frequency and the duration. I think the more specific you can get the court to put it in there, again, most of the time, it's the care manager that's in charge of authoring the case plan. But then remember, it was always up to judicial scrutiny. So if you don't like what is written by, a case manager who is has tons of kids that they have to manage, and they're overwhelmed, try and see if you can get the judge to put a floor in there, a minimum in there. It's weekly is the goal, at least weekly contact. And then ask for a follow-up status conference is another thing that I like to say. So raise it at the judicial review. If we can have the next slide, raise it at the judicial review and ask for a follow-up status conference. Again, we should be asking for the duration, the type, to be specific, so that we all know if we're meeting it, if we're meeting the goal, if we're not meeting the goal. The statute says that in the deliberations, it's the panel shall seek to determine. So maybe you won't get everything that you are asking for. But I would say put a minimum in there. I see in orders and in things written, liberal visitation or liberal contact. That's fine, but also put a minimum, liberal contact or liberal communication, liberal visitation, but at the minimum, so that your children, your siblings have a right to at least a minimum. Again, the goal is at least once a week for sibling visitation. And if you can't get visitation, see if you can get that contact. With older children, of course, as Robin mentioned, her child does gaming and the like. There's all different types of ways that kids can communicate. And if you get it in, if you raise the issue with the judge that, hey, this kid has a transporter, and by the time they get home, it's late, and then the other foster family has this, that, and the other going on, try and take it offline and see if you can get a visitation plan in advance of going to court, something workable. If it's not in-person visitation, then explore some next best options, but at least get a minimum is what I would say. And then as far as I think a lot of the commentary in the comments were continued communication provisions at finalization. We have in virtually every way that a case closes out, whether it's adoption orders, guardianship orders, or an order with a fit and willing relative in a permanent guardianship. That's all in the statutes. So as Robin stated, there are mechanisms for implementation and for enforcement that kind of go beyond the scope of today's presentation. But if you have those, step one is get them in there, get in the order. And I know you're not always, for me, I'm not always representing the whole sibling group. So I put in here a practice tip that request a copy of the final judgment, whether that's the final judgment of adoption or the guardianship order. You may not be the attorney drafting that final order, but request it before the final hearing, ask for the ability to review it, get it into the language, and ask at the multidisciplinary staffing. So if we're talking about continued communication, then that implies that we're talking about separated siblings. At the multidisciplinary staffing, I see it commonly that there is a plan in the staffing that doesn't necessarily make it into the final judgment. So insist that that's in the final judgment, advocate for it, get it in there. And that's, I think, more than half the battle is to get it in there. We have our statutory provisions that provide for it. In the guardianship statute, it's a shall, it's a mandatory. And again, we want to specify the frequency and nature of the visitation and the contact so that it's much more clear. If you do have to go in on an enforcement motion, it's much better if you have it in there and you have it in writing, and you at least you have a minimum, because then when you get in front of the court, it's crystal clear that it's either happening or it's not. And then I think sometimes some of these, like the previous on goals, we don't have mandatory provisions on sibling visitation. It's the goal is once a week. So when in doubt, argue legislative intent, which is we're going to get those statutory references at the conclusion of the training today. And the legislature has been very, very clear that the sibling relationships are very important to the siblings. It's on Florida Youth Shines on their initiatives pretty much all the time. If we could have the next slide. So when in doubt, argue the legislative intent. We do have some good laws that I think impress upon us how important those sibling relationships are. It's beneficial for the children to maintain those relationships with their siblings, regardless of their age, and the connections that those siblings have are lifelong. And I also do family law. So if we allowed the adults and the entities that were responsible for the kids to opt out of relationships with family, specifically with siblings in divorce scenarios, and I know we're not dealing with those statutes right now, but point being is that the adults in the children's lives need to promote those sibling relationships. We have a strong presumption of siblings being placed together. I think it's those cases where we have the inability to place siblings together. We really need to do a good job, a better job of making sure those attachments with the siblings are there. It of course is not an easy fix. We have to balance those with the existing bonds with the primary caregivers, balance those against the siblings. Those cases are never easy. I don't think the thrust of this training is to suggest that those are easy decisions, but we do have the multidisciplinary staffings, and we have the constructs to make sure that that we address all of those issues. And so I'll turn it back over to the Florida Youth Shine experience questions.
Thank you, Christine. And I'm going to turn it back to Ahim and Alexia. Just kind of wrap us up. What do you want people to know about sibling relationships and the child welfare system? Ahim, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think basically what we've been saying, understand that like connections are real, and when entering the system, it's traumatic. So understanding that things take time, and don't try to take away something that feels normal or feels like home. And be understanding. And one thing I'm all about is educate, educate, educate. Like tell them what's going on, constant reassurance. Not even so much as somebody sitting there holding your hand, but like, oh, give them a call, like, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. Or you don't have to worry about your sibling going somewhere, or this might happen and this will happen. So educating and making sure they stay in the loop of things.
Thank you. Alexia.
For me, I want people to know that having security in your supportive relationships is extremely important. And my siblings are the most supportive relationships I have, the relationships I have with them. They're actually my reason to be alive. Like I would not be here without them. And every single time I'm at one of my lowest points, all I have to do is look at them and I automatically feel like I can do this. I can accomplish whatever this is. I can get through it. Also, I feel like my siblings are a huge reason why I have such strong interpersonal skills in social settings. When I was able to play with them and spend time with them, I was able to learn how I feel, how to express what I feel, how to respect myself and others, and also their belongings, how to take other people's feelings into account, among many other things. And I think when you rob siblings of those relationships with each other, you're robbing them of having all of those social skills that they learn from having those interactions with each other. And yeah, like you're also taking away that motivation of being better and having somebody to keep challenging you the things that you didn't even know about yourself. And I just feel like people don't look into all the facets that are a part of a sibling relationship and how they really shape the person that you are today.
That is just an awesome way to end our conversation today. I know from the questions that we got in the chat that we did not satisfy some of your basic legal concerns about how to effectuate the requirements for post-adoption communication. And that should be something that we consider for a future topic of really what are the mechanics of enforcing those agreements. I agree that it's very important. I saw folks ask about the continued relationships with other siblings in care. The law just applies to siblings. And as we saw in the beginning, the definition of siblings includes those young people. So all the same mechanisms and tools that we talked about, getting it in the case plan, having it reviewed at judicial review, et cetera, can be applied to children who have, I want to call them social siblings, I guess, for lack of a better term. So use those same tools. We hope that this gives you some food for thought and some actions to take when you're working with kids on a day-to-day basis. As we've said since the outset, since Florida Youth Shine was created and even before and its predecessors. This is a really important issue for young people. And this is not the end of the conversation. We will continue it and hope to continue to provide tools to everyone. So we will hang on for a second and answer some more questions in the chat, but I appreciate all of your time. And I know all the work that you're going to do going forward to help kids stay connected to their siblings. Back to you, Alexis.
And so some final housekeeping announcements. The CLE code has been dropped into the chat. To say it out loud, that CLE code is 240203, N as in Nancy. Again, it's in the chat. And this was approved by the Florida Bar for 1.5 general CLE credits and 1.01 juvenile law certification credit and 1.5 marital and family law certification credits. Anyone here who needs a certificate of attendance, whether it be for guardian ad litem work or anything, or just generally, you can email me directly. My email is in the chat, but it's alexis.bartholomew@floridalegal.org. Anything you need, you can email me. Additionally, as I said earlier, this was recorded, and the recording will be sent to everybody who registered and who's present here today. Along with that recording, you will also receive the materials that Robin mentioned and that CLE code information. So don't worry if you can't jot it down right now. We'll be sure to get it to you in one way or another. Before turning it back over to anyone for any last minute thoughts, I do just want to say how honored I am to be able to facilitate this discussion here today. I learned so much, and I'm so just in awe of everything that you all do on a regular basis for children. And so, Robin, is there anything you wanted to say to close out? I know you were going to answer some more questions. Oop, you're on mute.
Thank you. Hopefully we've covered it all. And if not, the materials have our contact information, and we are happy to support you in the work you do in keeping siblings together. So take a quick last look.
And I would say this too, while Robin scans the chats, is that if you want to discuss a case, talk to us. Our information is on the website, Florida's Children First. Different pockets of the state handle things a little bit differently, but we're statewide. So, let us know what's going on across the state. And, we're always happy to engage and have conversations offline if we didn't answer anything that you had that was a burning question during the training.
I just want to thank Alexia and Ahim again for helping us with the presentation. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon.